It was a quiet Tuesday morning in Louisville, Kentucky, November 4th, 2025. The air was unusually still. A low fog clung to the runway lights at Bowman Field, like a warning that no one could read. At 4:26 a.m., Flight 728, a UPS cargo jet en route from Ontario, California, to the Louisville International Hub, vanished from radar seconds before a blinding orange flash tore through the skyline. The city slept through most of it, but the few who saw the sky erupt would never forget the sound, the kind that sinks into your bones and doesn't to leave. Authorities called it an accident, a routine landing gone wrong. But routine doesn't explode. Routine doesn't scatter wreckage across half a mile of industrial terrain. And routine doesn't take 9 lives when only 3 people were supposed to be on board. So what really happened on that flight? Flight 728 was a McDonnell Douglas MD-11, an aging workhorse of the skies. 3 engines, long hauls, mostly cargo. Inside, the manifest listed routine freight, medical supplies, electronics, a few urgent packages from federal contractors. Nothing unusual, nothing to raise flags. Yet by dawn, federal investigators had already sealed off the crash site and declared it a Level 3 restricted zone. Why? One local resident, 52-year-old Ron Dempsey, said later, "They told us it was batteries, something about a lithium fire, but the smoke smelled different. It was metallic, sharp, not like any fire I've ever known." Lithium battery fires were a known risk in air freight, but what firefighters found at the site didn't match the pattern. There were fragments of reinforced containers, industrial-grade casings rated for explosive materials. And yet, officially, no such cargo existed on the plane. The captain, recorded only as Mark Davis, was a veteran pilot with over 20 years of experience. His co-pilot, Laura Jennings, had just logged her 1,000th flight hour. Both were well rested. Both were cleared medically and psychologically. The flight's third member, Anthony Reese, was an onboard engineer, a rare position these days but required for older aircraft. Their last recorded communication was calm, professional, then silence. The cockpit voice recorder, recovered later, would capture less than 10 seconds of panic metal screeching, a dull bang, then static. But analysts noticed something else, 2 faint voices that didn't match any crew member. A male voice, low and hurried, and another muttering what sounded like, "It's burning through." Burning through what? By noon that day, the National Transportation Safety Board held a press briefing. Preliminary evidence suggests a cargo fire may have led to catastrophic failure, said spokesperson Helen Wu. "We have no indication of foul play." But she was wrong. An internal memo leaked days later hinted at a different story, one that involved an unlisted consignment, shipped under diplomatic code. The sender? A company named Straton Biologics, a defense-affiliated contractor with offices in Nevada and D.C. Their cargo was classified as medical research material. Yet one retired UPS loadmaster who spoke anonymously claimed Straton had been shipping bioengineered samples under falsified documentation for months. When asked why no one stopped them, he paused and said, "Because people at the top knew. They always know." If that's true, Flight 728 wasn't carrying just parcels, it was carrying secrets. 2 days after the crash, an investigator named Michael Alvarez, assigned to the NTSB Hazardous Materials Team, went missing. His rental car was found abandoned near the Kentucky-Indiana border, doors locked, engine cold, his laptop gone, his access badge missing. He had filed one report before disappearing, titled only Container 14A, Inconsistency. The file was removed from the official record. When reporters asked the FAA about it, they declined to comment. When local media pushed UPS for a statement, the company expressed deep condolences and promised full cooperation. The story fell from national headlines within 48 hours. But silence doesn't mean closure. One Louisville firefighter, Aaron McNeil, told the journalist months later that federal agents had taken away samples from the crash site before local responders could analyze them. They were wearing hazmat suits before anyone even said the word contamination, he said. That's not normal. That's premeditated. What exactly was on that plane? Let's backtrack. The cargo manifest listed 44 pallets of general freight, but according to the airport's loading schedule, 46 were loaded. 2 went unregistered. Investigators later traced the missing pallets to a warehouse subcontractor called Eclipse Logistics, which vanished from state business records days after the crash. Coincidence? Or cover-up? Someone somewhere didn't want the world to know what Flight 728 carried. In the weeks that followed, Louisville residents noticed an unusual uptick in security around the crash perimeter. Unmarked vehicles patrolled the area even after cleanup was complete. Locals described men in black windbreakers collecting debris fragments long after the official report declared, "Site cleared." When one resident tried to film, his phone was confiscated. He was told it was a restricted operation, yet no one could answer restricted by whom. 6 months later, the NTSB quietly released its final statement. Probable cause thermal runaway event originating from undeclared lithium cargo, resulting in uncontrolled in-flight fire. The report closed the case. No mention of the missing investigator, the sealed containers, or the diplomatic cargo. But then came the second explosion. On June 17, 2026, 7 months later, a warehouse in Henderson, Nevada, owned by Straton Biologics, went up in flames. Witnesses reported seeing the same silver containers being loaded onto trucks hours before the blast. The company claimed sabotage. Federal agents called it an industrial accident. No arrests were made. By now, a pattern was emerging, a trail of fire, loss, and silence. But one journalist refused to let it go. Carol Mills, an independent aviation reporter, had covered crashes before. She knew corporate damage control when she saw it. In a podcast interview, she asked, "Why would a private biotech contractor ship unlisted cargo through a commercial carrier? And why did the FAA let it happen?" Her investigation uncovered emails showing that Straton had been granted special clearance under a government rapid deployment exemption, allowing transport of sensitive biological material essential to national research. That's bureaucratic language for don't ask questions. When Mills published her findings online, her website was hacked within 24 hours. The files vanished. She received an anonymous message. Some cargo is meant to stay buried, but buried things have a way of resurfacing. A year after the crash, a maintenance worker restoring power lines near the original impact zone discovered a half-melted titanium case lodged in the ground. It bore an engraving, SB14A, the same code as Alvarez's missing file. Inside was a glass cylinder, cracked but intact. The residue tested positive for synthetic viral proteins classified under Level 4 containment, meaning this wasn't medicine. It was something else, something designed. No one claimed it. The sample was seized by federal agents within hours. The worker who found it? He later reported persistent headaches, rashes, and unexplained fatigue. No official link was ever acknowledged. What was the purpose of that material? And who authorized it to be shipped across the country, thousands of feet in the air, over American cities, aboard a civilian aircraft? Some called it conspiracy. Others called it corruption. But the truth is often simpler and darker. Money. Shipping through UPS allowed Straton to bypass federal air transport scrutiny. It's plausible deniability, said one former logistics executive. You hide something dangerous inside something routine. No one looks twice, until it burns, and it burned. By 2027, UPS quietly phased out the MD-11F fleet, citing operational upgrades. Straton Biologics dissolved, rebranded as Senora Research, and secured new contracts with the Department of Defense. The families of the Flight 728 crew received undisclosed settlements. Non-disclosure agreements followed. No one talks about Flight 728 anymore, but survivors remember the sound, the smell, the silence afterward. One firefighter told me off record, we weren't putting out a normal fire, it was alive. The smoke clung to your gear, your hair. Days later you could still taste it. Maybe he was exaggerating, maybe not. But as the night sky turned red that November morning, something changed in Louisville. Something unseen but deeply felt. It's easy to move on when headlines fade, to call it human error, technical failure, routine tragedy. But what if it wasn't? What if what fell from the sky that morning wasn't just metal and flame, but the evidence of a truth no one wanted to face? Because sometimes disasters don't just happen. Sometimes they're arranged. And somewhere in the silence between the black box recording and the official report, the truth waits buried under layers of protocol, secrecy, and fear. Louisville rebuilt. The runway reopened. The fog returned. Flights still cross that same sky every morning. But for those who remember, every rumble overhead feels like an echo, an unanswered question, trailing behind the hum of the engines. What really burned aboard Flight 728? And who made sure we'd never know? Maybe we'll never find out. Maybe we were never meant to, because the cargo that fell that morning wasn't just freight, it was a message. And the people who sent it are still out there, watching the skies,